Okay, it's quite easy concept, right? Suppose in this project, I'll make a class known as say a very simple class known as say car class. Now car class has functions like public void start, a function like public void stop. Okay, and if I make another class known as say Honda car, then of course I will have to make these two functions in this particular class. But it doesn't make sense to repeat these functions in the Honda car class. Okay, so this is the car class. I had to copy the functions into the Honda car class. So what we do is that instead of writing this, copying the functions, we write Honda car extends the car class. That means it is extending the features of car class. It will have everything, whatever is there in the car class will be there in the Honda car class. If I make a new file known as test car with the main function, if I create the object of car class, you will be able to see that obviously this will have the start and the stop functions. Okay, because start and stop functions are there in the car class. But apart from this, if I create the object of Honda car, these functions would also be there in the Honda car class object. Although you can't see them, but because it is extending the car class, it will have all the features of the car class. Hope you got my point. Okay.
And, Ashish, can you repeat again? In test core, what will happen?
In test car, I created the object of Honda car.
Hmm.
Okay. If I create the object of Honda car, it will have all the features of the car class.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if I if I create a function like public void drive, this function can be accessed. This function is in the Honda car class, so this function can be accessed from the Honda car object as well. So the basically the class which is extending, okay, Honda car is known as the child class and car class is known as the technically we call it the parent class. Child inherits stuff from the parents. Okay, child has got everything. Okay, whatever is there in the parent class. Okay, child will have everything. Child inherits stuff from the parent. Okay, so obviously child can have its own properties as well, apart from the properties it inherits from the parent. Okay, right. I hope you understood my point. Right. Now, moving ahead, if I look at the drive function, I can call the start function or the stop function from here as well, because these functions, they are coming up from the parent class. Okay, you can call the functions of the parent class over here as well. All right, fine. Now, um, just a minute. This is done. Okay, now moving ahead, how will inheritance help us? Look, every time I have to write this code in which I am launching the browser. Okay, so what I'll do is that I'll make a new Java project as say Selenium Basics. I don't want to write this code every time, and I will create a new class out here known as test base class, and this test base class will have a function like public void open browser. You can send the browser name in this. Okay, right. And rather, I'll keep it in a package. I'll create a package known as base package. Package is like a folder inside a folder. Under the source default package, I have the base package. I'll move it into this. It's just a way to organize your code in a better way. Okay, so I've kept it over here, and I will keep the code of opening the browser in the test base class out here. Okay, let me just import the Selenium jar files. Okay, so this function I'm going to actually keep in the test base class. All right, and I'll make a new package. Say today is the fifth day, day 5. And in day 5, suppose I'll copy this Zoho .java which we had made yesterday. All right, so what we will do is we will not write the code to open the browser over here. We will write Zoho is extending test base class. You'll have to import it from the package. So now you can call the function you can call the open browser function, and okay, this is static. That's the problem. Hold on. Guys, there's one small thing which I want to tell you before implementing this. I did not tell you, that's my bad. Um, it's about testng. Okay, uh, just keep this thing as it is, right, for just 10 minutes. Okay, I should have talked about testng earlier. Look, the thing is, uh, Selenium as a tool is having commands which can interact with the browser. We saw that Selenium can open the browser and Selenium can interact with the elements of the browser. But Selenium cannot write test cases. Okay, to write test cases, you need to use another third-party tool known as testng. Okay, for time being, I just want you to install testng in your Eclipse. Okay, go to Google, type testng Eclipse. You will see this link and go to install the plugin, and um, you will have this link over here, and install the version 7.0 for testng. This will be the most stable version. Okay, this URL I will give you on the chat as well. Right. So what you need to do with this URL is you need to go to help, install new software, and paste the URL, hit the enter button, click on this checkbox, click on next, 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 and testng will be installed. Eclipse will be restarted in between. Fine. So this will actually install testng in your Eclipse, and then you will be able to build and write the test cases. Okay, so with testng, you can actually build test cases, right? Test cases, right? And it can help you with that, right? So now, once,
Ashish, for Mac also it's the same thing, the test engine link. I don't think.
yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So now, once you have installed testng, you can build test cases, right? There is no main function in testng. Okay, there is no main function as such, right? Uh, Hold on, I'll tell you. You don't need to write public static void main. Okay, in testng, you make annotations at the rate test annotation, public void say test. you make non-static functions, right? So you move the mouse over this test error, right? And click on the link add testng library. When you click on this, testng library will be added into your project over here. It will have nothing but some jar files. Okay, supporting testng. And then you move the mouse over this and import the test annotation. So when you import the test annotation, it will be imported out here, right? So this function becomes your test case. If I just remove everything from this function, so this function is your basic test case. And there is no main function in testng. All right. TestNG is not meant for Selenium. It's a separate tool, but we use it with Selenium because it makes the process of building test cases, it makes that process a little easy. Right. So when you run this code, what happens is it gives you an output like this. Total test runs are 1, failures are 0, and skips are 0. And it gives you some graphical output as well. This was the test Zoho which we execute. You can run it like right click on it and run as testng test as well. Okay, so testng will be used in every day when we build it. There are many other test cases or many other fundamentals and concepts in testng which I will talk about later on, not now, but uh, we will be using these, okay, in coming days. Right. Now, let me just put back the code. Now, what we can do is we can remove this code here and we can write over here that this class extends the test base class. And I can call the open browser function over here, send the browser name. Okay, I'll remove this code for time being. So open browser function is in the test base class, which this class is extending. Okay, so it will have access to the open browser function. And if I run this code, so this will open the Chrome browser. Okay, so whenever in your program or in your new file you want to open the browser, you just need to extend the class to the test base and call this function open browser. So this way you will not repeat the code of launching the browser again and again in every class. Okay, this is how you can say that test ng it helps us. Fine. Okay, now one more thing. This driver we have declared, I will declare this driver globally so that it is accessible everywhere. This driver is accessible in this class as well as the child classes. And this driver will be initialized in the open browser function, and also we will be giving up the implicit wait in the open browser function. Okay. Anybody with any questions? In the open browser function, I will initialize the driver And then I can use this driver later on in firing the WebDriver command. So if I run this code, the output would still be the same which we were getting, but because of inheritance, we are making a reusable function which will open the browser and put an implicit wait as well. Okay, right. Now moving ahead, there is one more concept which I want to teach you, and this is a Java concept. And that concept is of exception handling. Okay, because before I talk about XPaths and I move forward, you need to understand exception handling in Java. I'll make a new class as exception handling Java with say only the main function. Now, suppose you are running a code. Okay, you are writing over here a, then int I equals to 100 divided by 10, and b, when you run this, it prints of course a and b. However, if you write 100 divided by 0, which is practically not possible, and if you run this, you get an exception, arithmetic exception. And it tells you that it's coming on the exception handling.java line number 8. If you click on this link, it will highlight that particular line. Okay. Whenever an exception is some undesired situation, okay, where you really don't want to run into in when you're running your program. So exception handling is actually required, right? Because you really don't want to run into few undesired places in your code execution. Fine, right? And when an exception comes up, it gives you everything. It gives you the type of exception, it is divided by 0, arithmetic exception, and the line number as well. Okay, guys, just to hold on, there's somebody on the door. I'll be back. Just hold on. Okay. All right. So exception handling. What happens when an exception comes up? The program stops on that line. See, this is only printing A, but it is not printing B. Okay. So at times we want to recover from this error. What do you mean by recover from this situation? You would want that fine if the exception comes up. Okay, you report it somewhere, you come to know about it, but you continue the execution of the program. You continue with the flow. Okay, you don't want the execution or the flow to stop. Okay, so what we do is that in order to not stop the execution, we put this line, many of you must be knowing about it, in a try catch block. Like this. Okay, and I'll print over here in catch block. So if some exception comes up, the control reaches inside the catch block. So when you run this code, you will actually see A, then in catch block, and then B getting printed. Okay, if you put 100 divided by say 2, and if you run this program, then only A and B will be printed because there is no exception. Okay, so except if any exception comes up, if anything goes wrong in the try block, right, the control always comes in the catch block. Okay, and if I write 100 divided by say 0, and if I print over here A1, and if I print over here in the try block A2, and okay, hold on, 100 divided by 2, right? And when you run this, it's going to print A, A1, A2, and B. So nothing goes wrong in these three lines. They get executed finely, and it's just going with this try catch block like this. It's never going in the catch block. Right. Now, if we give an exception, and if I run this code, so what we will see is that it prints A, then it prints A1. A1 is this line. It never prints A2 because on this line, the exception is thrown, and then it goes in the catch block. It prints in the catch block and then B. So if anything goes wrong in the try block on any line, the lines ahead of that particular line are not executed. Okay, and the control goes in the cache block. You can test it out with the help of debugging the program. Okay, there is a concept of debugging in Java. You double click in front of this line, you will see a breakpoint, this small dot. It's a breakpoint. All right, and I'll write this 100 divided by 2. So you run this in the debug mode. This is a small debug button over here right next to the run button. And when you run it in the debug mode is very helpful to find the errors and all everything in the program. Right. So you see that the control stops on this line. This green lines means that the control is over here, and this is the console. You can run the program line by line as per your convenience in debug mode. If you hit F6 of the keyboard, then this line will be executed and it will print A. Control goes on the next line. If you hit F6 again, you will see A1. Okay, so if you keep on hitting F6, each line will be executed. You see that now this line is executed, and you will see a variable I coming up over here with the value 50, because 100 divided by 2 is 50. Right. So you can run the code line by line and see how the execution is running. Okay, F6 again, right. F6 again, and it goes to F8, right. If you want to run it normally, you hit F8. Means like if I run it in the debug mode again, it will stop on this particular first line where you have kept the breakpoint. Wherever you have kept the breakpoint, it will stop there. If you hit F6, it will run line by line. And if you hit F8, it will run normally. Okay. In between the execution, if you just want to terminate the program, you can terminate the program from this red terminate button. This will stop the program. Okay. So you have debugging with which you can help, or with which you can run the program line by line. Hmm. Sorry. Okay. Now, if I write 100 divided by 0 and run it in the debug mode, so it will stop on the breakpoint. It's not necessary to give the breakpoint on the first line. You can give it on any line, right? If you hit F6, now because of 100 divided by 0, you will see it going in the catch block and printing in catch block. You see that? Right? So debugging helps you a lot, especially, to see the values of the variables, right? If I write 100 divided by 2 for I, and if I see I equals to 19 over here, then I write I equals to 17 over here. And if I run it in the debug mode, you will see that at runtime, I can see the value of I, right? If I hit F6, I is now 50. If I hit F6 again, now I is 19. So I can see the values of my variables in the debug mode clearly changing at runtime. Okay, so this is helpful. Exception handling and debugging. Okay, you should have some good grasp at it, right? Now, if you click on this icon, open perspective, and select Java, so it will go back to the normal view which view we were having. Okay, debug view is different, and the normal regular view is the Java view. Okay, right. So at times when you are not knowing what's going wrong in the program, you can put the breakpoint or multiple breakpoints, and you can check that out, that what's actually going wrong. All right. Now, the next thing is the next thing which I want to talk about is exceptions in Selenium. There are different types of exceptions which we can get in Selenium. You can get, say, no such element exception. Okay, which is like the element is not found on the web page. And when an exception comes up, it clearly gives you the line number as well on which the exception is coming. Okay. At times, you get element not interactable exceptions, tail element reference exception. So there are different exceptions. I will be talking about those exceptions and under which circumstance or under which criteria does that exception come up. I will also talk about that. Okay. So before that, right, let's start up with the concept of XPaths. Today I majorly focused on Java. I told you the concepts of Java. Right. Now about XPaths, as I told you yesterday that see after opening the browser and navigating to the website, right, we were able to interact with the username and the login button with the help of the command driver.find element, and we were finding the element by the name and the ID of the element. But every element will not have a name or an ID. Okay, not every element on the web page has a name or an ID. Okay, so if you want the element to have to be identified, then there are other ways to identify the element, say with the help of XPath or with the help of CSS selector. So we will talk about XPaths first. Okay, there are two types of XPaths. Right, I'll make a new normal file known as xpaths.txt inside Eclipse. And there are two types of XPaths. One are absolute XPaths. Okay, or these are also known, this is also known as complete XPath. And the other XPath is the partial XPath. Okay, we use partial XPath more than absolute or complete XPath, but you should know about both of them. XPaths can be calculated manually or they can be calculated from Chrome browser. Okay, we will see that. All right. Now, um, guys, what do I do? Because, I need time for this. I need time at a stretch of, say, 1 hour to explain you XPaths. Right. I'll actually stop here, honestly, because if I start and I break it half today and half tomorrow, it will not make any sense. Right. So just let us stop over here because I just want to take this because this is very important concept will be used in the entire training. Okay, so I will stop here. The recording has not come up in the account. Somebody messaged